I'm Heidi. Welcome to my kitchen.
Hey guys, so today is day 6, and today we are going to be making Nasi Lemak and Malaysian Fried Chicken. I started off this recipe preparing the rice. This is a very small recipe. I was only making it for one person, so I used a very small amount of rice. What you see there is a pandan leaf tied into knots and thrown in the Instapot, and then I broke and bruised a chunk of lemongrass. I threw my rice in, which was about 3/4 of a cup, and then I threw in 3/4 of a cup of coconut milk and 3/4 of a cup of water, and covered the rice, and then set my Instapot to cook for 10 minutes, and that was enough to do 1 serving of rice. And then I let that go, and then we moved on to the rest of our recipe. Then I started working on preparing my sambal. I quartered 1 red onion into chunks, and I chopped up about 7 cloves of garlic. I used small garlic, so even though the recipe called for 5 cloves, because these cloves were very small, I actually used about 7. And this did not need to be a real fine mince. This was just a rough chop because all of this was going to go into a processor. So I just chopped it up really rough and then got it ready to throw in the processor. It was really easy. Then I had to de-seed all of my chilies. Now, this recipe called for 200 grams of dried chilies and a mixture of fresh and dried chilies. And so I used about 100 grams of fresh shishito peppers, a mixture of green and orange, and about 100 grams of dried Kashmiri peppers with the seeds strained out of them. And then I used 3 Thai chili peppers. The Kashmiri peppers are not very spicy on their own as long as you take the seeds out of them. The seeds do have a little bit of a kick to them, but they're probably about as spicy as a jalapeno. They're really not bad. I did take the seeds out because I really wanted my dish to be more sweet than spicy. The Thai chili peppers did make it a little on the spicy side, but I thought it came out very tolerable. It was really good. And anytime you're working with chili peppers, I always recommend you wear gloves because you will get the oil from the chili peppers on your hands. And if you touch your face or your eyes or any porous area of your body, you're going to end up with it being very spicy and very hot, and you will burn yourself. So it's a good idea to put a barrier between your skin and the oil from those peppers by using gloves or washing your hands very thoroughly afterwards. But even if you wash your hands, oftentimes those oils will stay on your hands for hours afterwards. So gloves are really a nice thing for working with hot peppers. So I moved over here to my saute pan, and I got a little bit of ghee, probably about a tablespoon of ghee or clarified butter heating in the pan. And I got that started. I did heat up a decent amount, probably more than a tablespoon, probably a couple tablespoons, because this was for frying up the dried anchovies. So I wanted a decent amount of oil in there. I added my dried anchovies and got those frying up. I wanted those really sizzling, and I let those fry until it started to really turn brown. I kept those moving in my pan for a while. I didn't want to leave them stagnant because I didn't want them to burn. I added some hot water to my Kashmiri chilies and to my dried shrimp to rehydrate them, and then I let them sit for about 10 minutes. Then I moved back over to my anchovies, which had been crisping up really nicely and were starting to brown really nicely at that point, so I went ahead and pulled them. And you can see that nice golden brown color developing on those anchovies. They're a nice kind of golden brown coming out of the pan there, which is exactly what we want. We want them to be really brown and crispy. I continued prepping my sambal. I moved over and I chopped up some lemongrass. The lemongrass specifically called for the white part only, so I removed the top of the lemongrass and used the bottom section specifically. Then I got the oil heating for my fried chicken and started temping that out. When I was sure the oil had hit a solid 350 degrees, then I added my chicken to the oil. I only added 3 legs at a time. I didn't want to overcrowd the pan. That's a big thing when you're cooking fried chicken, is you only want to do a few at a time. You don't want to overcrowd your pan because it will drop the temperature in your pan and your chicken will not cook evenly. I set a timer for 10 minutes and then I moved over to make my sambal. So I added dried shrimp to my processor after it had been rehydrating for a little while. And then I also added my Kashmiri chili peppers to my dried shrimp in my processor. Then I added my fried anchovies. Then I added my shishito peppers. I added my minced garlic, my lemongrass, and my onion. I added my lid and I ground that into a paste. I added a little bit of clarified butter to a pan. I added my shrimp paste to the pan, or my belacan, and I let that cook down a little bit and kind of mashed that up and let it cook. And when that had cooked down a little bit, then I added my sambal mixture into that and I just kind of cooked it all together. And then I also added my tamarind paste in there as well. And then I just let that cook for about 10 minutes. Now I pulled aside my peanuts, my brown sugar, and my dried anchovies, and I pulled up my pan that I had fried my other anchovies in, and I put that on the front burner and set my sambal on the back burner and started preparing my sides for my Nasi Lemak. And I started with my fried anchovies, and I started out frying them in the same pan that I had fried the anchovies in before. Gave my sambal a stir so that it wouldn't burn. Got to keep an eye on that. And kept my anchovies turning. Go ahead and turned my chicken over so that that wouldn't burn. And kept that moving. And when my anchovies were ready to pull, I pulled them off of the stove when they were nice and brown and crispy and set them aside. And those were going to be one of the sides on my plate. And then when those were pulled aside, then I fried my peanuts in the same oil. And then I just crisped up and fried and browned my peanuts. And I added a little bit of brown sugar to the peanuts. And when my peanuts were done cooking, I pulled those aside and I set them aside as another side for my dish. Then I had to get my hard-boiled egg going. Now here's the trick to a hard-boiled egg. 11 minutes in hot water and then 9 minutes outside the water on its own. And then 3 minutes in an ice bath. And you will have a perfect hard-boiled egg. I learned this working in a restaurant. I did it every single time. If you want a soft-boiled egg, do 8 minutes in the water. noticed that my chicken was done here, going back to my stuff. So my chicken was done, so I pulled my fried chicken, and then I went and got my rice. I packed my rice into a little cup so that I could set it up for my Nasi Lemak. And there's my coconut rice for the center of my Nasi Lemak. And then I added my fried anchovies on one side. And then I added my peanuts. And then I added my sambal. And then my fried chicken. And of course, my egg. And there is my Nasi Lemak.
Dig into this fried chicken. That Malaysian fried chicken is really good.
Yes.
Dig a little bit into the rice and some of the sambal. So the rice is a coconut rice. Get a little bit of the sambal mixed in with the rice. Rice is delicious. Sambal's a little spicy. I was trying to keep the spice tone down, but it did come out really spicy. But it's delicious. Very, very seafoody. You can really taste the seafood in there.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below, and catch new content every week.